he had over like 200 cars and 83 of them were Porsches.
Wow.
They made like 272 of them in a 3-year span, and supposedly we have the only one in the United States.
Wow. And speed yellow.
I took it for a spin. It was nothing I had ever experienced before.
This image that you're putting out there I think is super important. I'm slowly trying to get my wife into cars. I'm Mike Izzo, and welcome back to the J&B Bodyworks podcast, a conversation show where we talk to guests about cars, life, and everything in between. Well, Stefania, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's time to get all formal and professional now.
Yes.
One of the reasons why I'm super excited to have you here, and one of the things that I think is really awesome that you're doing, quick read of your Instagram and your website, is this WIP movement, which I think is great. And Elvis and I have been trying to do this lately, which is bring more women on the podcast, because we've had this conversation before about how the car community has a touch of toxicity in it that we'd like to try to get rid of. And I always think that when there's women around, men are a little bit better behaved. So I really love what you're doing.
Thanks.
And so you're a car fan.
Yep.
And Porsche specifically?
Yes. Recently, yes.
Recently?
Definitely.
How recently?
Oh, I would say probably the last 13 years.
Okay. What was it before that?
Well, anything that was sporty vintage cars. So I was in San Francisco, and when I came from Italy, because I'm from Naples, Italy, and I came here when I was like 10 years old. My parents, I had a hard time adjusting to the culture around here. So my parents enrolled me in dance, and I was taking ballet, and they put me into the San Francisco Ballet School, but we lived 80 miles away. So for many years, I was taking the BART bus, 80 miles, 4 hours, and I just got so tired of, so I would had a lot of time to daydream about.
That's brutal. 4 hours?
Yeah. And
wow.
I was a very good dancer, and I, did a lot of theater as well. And so I just said to myself, as soon as I turn 16 years old, I am going to get the coolest car that I could afford. And have just that freedom. And so I had a lot of time to think about what I wanted, and I really became passionate about sporty vintage cars.
Yeah. And was your first car that?
I had a 77 Triumph Spitfire 1500.
Wow.
It was cute. It was affordable. It cost a lot of money because it would break down.
Of course.
It would probably be my best friend.
Yeah. Bring it here. And so you learned on a manual transmission?
I learned. It was my first car that I ever drove. It was a manual transmission. We replaced a lot of things.
Couple clutches.
A couple clutches, couple brakes.
Yeah.
The streets of San Francisco, it's very windy. So I went to a lot of auditions. I went to ballet. I mean, I just loved Berkeley. I loved going over the Golden Gate Bridge. And then I just started having so much fun with my girlfriends. We'd get in the car. It was a convertible. So we'd go over to Stinson Beach, blast the music, Tears for Fears, and just complete nostalgia anytime I get in an old vintage car.
That's
so
great.
that's kind of where it all started.
And did you do a lot of work on the cars yourself, or did you have somebody that you went to?
I don't remember. It was too long ago, but certainly I don't.
You don't toil?
I don't. My husband's pretty good at it, though.
Yeah, people oftentimes, they're like, do you get your hands dirty? I'm like, no, not often. I'm behind a desk most of the time, which is okay.
You do?
I would like to do more. The one thing that I've started doing recently, which I've been enjoying a lot, is painting. I've been painting a lot, which is like debatably the dirtiest job at the shop.
Yeah.
In terms of health, right? You have to be wearing a mask. There's clear, there's primer, there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
you do a lot of it. You guys seem like you do a lot of it here.
We do, yes. So we're your full automotive shop. So we'll do anything from suspension work to full restorations, and it's it can be a lot of fun. But Porsche owners like yourself are a very particular brand of car owner, and that's what we thrive on. Is that something that you like about Porsches? Do you like the particularities of it? Are you a fan of the quirkiness?
It's funny. Coming from the Triumph Spitfire and then having a Mazda Miata, when I first got my first job out of college, I was introduced to Porsches by my father-in-law. And he is an amazing man. He's no longer with us.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
It was right around the time when I married my husband, and he had over like 200 cars and 83 of them were Porsches.
Wow, that's incredible. So you got to see a ton of really cool stuff. Yeah,
of course. A lot
of
of cool cars. bought his last car, we propositioned him. It was the 83rd car. It was a 1978 911 SC.
Wow, really cool.
White, beautiful.
Air cooled.
And I just fell in love with it. So he said yes, and we made payments because we didn't have the money at the time. And ever since then, we've just fallen in love with Porsches. I have a 1980 911 SC. Great cars, very different. They drive very, very different. It's in a Grand Prix white. We've just kind of put the scripts on it and Momo steering wheel on it. So we started collecting them, and they're just so much fun. We have quite a nice, fun collection of Porsches.
What else do you have in the collection?
I would say one that's pretty unique that we just got a year ago was the 2000 MK1 996 GT3
Wow.
Club Sport.
It's a great car.
Yellow.
Very rare.
Do you know what? Okay.
I know
a
about
lot of
it,
people
yes.
do. I
Yes.
just learned a lot about it.
It's very rare. It's very analog. It's very tied to the road, loud. There's not much inside. We have a base, it's weird to call it base, but a base GT3 996 at the shop now, which I don't understand why that's the most hated of the 911s, but it just so happens to be.
I watched your YouTube, and that's kind of the similar things, but it probably is the most affordable, fun car out there.
I would say.
I also learned that they made like 272 of them in a 3-year span, and supposedly we have the only one in the United States.
Wow. And speed yellow too.
Speed yellow.
Which is a very special color in my opinion. I'm not a Guards red fan, which is the typical Porsche red. You see a Porsche, you think red.
Yeah, sure.
But I think speed yellow. And to have that car and that spec is definitely very special. Is that your favorite car of your cars to drive?
So it's really funny you say that, because that kind of car is not really, I mean, I really gravitate towards the classic one. It's probably the funnest 911 water-cooled Porsche out there, right? At 8,000 RPMs. It's not really my style, but our friend Andrew from Sotomoto, who imports cars from Japan, you know, I fell in the trap. He's like, well, just go take it for a spin.
Yeah, that's it.
So, I mean, I took it for a spin. It was nothing I had ever experienced before. Then my husband drove it the second half, and he said it reminded him of one of his cars that his father owned, which was a 1974 911 RSR that Paul Newman owned.
Wow. That's insane. I'd love to hear a story about that.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
crazy.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd
It
love to
was
talk
Mexico
to him about
Blue, got a lot of attention.
Wow.
Another car that he owned that I have to share is a 1974 930 that Lee Majors bought for Farrah Fawcett, Charlie's Angels. It's like in a cream yellow. It's beautiful.
Beautiful. It's like a cashmere sort of.
Yeah, it's like a, well, I'll have to show you a picture.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, we'll
definitely.
pop it up right here on the screen. Because that's what's fun about the Porsche community too. It's I think Porsches are for the real enthusiast and honestly car nerd, because, you know, we post these videos and we have thick skin, but you make one tiny mistake about a Porsche, excuse me, because I've been getting that a lot. Porsche.
Yes, my gosh, I used to say that. My husband's like, it's Porsche.
Porsche, yes.
Yes.
And the colors are something that people.
Yeah.
It's like as an American, it's like being from New York or Boston. It's like, that is not Aztec blue. That is,
yes, absolutely. It is not red. It is Guards red,
Yeah,
and it is speed yellow. And I mean, they're very exact. A friend of mine has a really cool 911 1973 RS Tribute. And it is Mexico.
Mexico
you know,
blue,
I mean,
yeah. We had a Fjord blue in here the other day. We had it gets insane. But I understand
But you do, because you guys have to paint.
I was just going to say, I should be the one who should have the catalog in my brain.
Right.
Going like, that is Brewster green, you know, but it's tough. You have so many colors in your head. It gets a little bit ridiculous sometimes. But Porsche does a really good job of it, especially with their paint to sample stuff.
Do people come to you? I mean, no accidents, but if somebody came to you and said, I love this Guards red, but can you make it an olive green? I mean, you guys do that here?
We will. Well, specifically, we like to get involved in stuff like that when it has to do with Porsche, because, like I said, we're really proud of the fact that we're a Porsche certified shop. And the only thing is, we won't do anything unless we can do it exactly the way that we want to. And a lot of times people will come in and say, I don't really care about the engine bay. I don't really care about what's under the hood. there's a little bit of rust, just glaze over it. We can't do that. Our goal is that when somebody drives out of the shop, somebody sees them on the side of the road and says, instead of saying, who painted your car? They say, wow, who painted your car? And that seems like a slight difference. But for us, it's
You guys are perfectionists.
we have to be.
How long have you guys been in business?
40 years.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
my dad started in 1982. And we've just been hustling and bustling and still have a lot to learn. My brother and I, who couldn't be with us tonight, he's not dead. He's just had a prior engagement. I think he probably had a date. I don't know. He...
Parlano italiano la tua famiglia?
No. So if we want to say anything...
Soltanto tu?
Only me. That's it.
No,
Yeah, I know,
you're
am I
not.
crazy?
You're not. No, veramente.
And the funny thing is, whenever I want to talk behind people's back in Italian with my brother, can't do it. I just look at him and I'm like, I wish you spoke Italian. He's like, I don't know what to tell you.
That's something my sisters and I always
Really
did.
do?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite story with that is a buddy of mine is covered head to toe in tattoos. Handsome guy, the sweetest guy you've ever met in your life. But if he shaves his head, he literally has all the way up to here tattooed. And
oh my gosh.
He speaks Italian. He got off the plane from Italy to New York, and the whole plane ride, he said that the people in front of him or the people behind him were speaking in Italian, just absolutely obliterating him. So he gets off the plane, grabs his luggage, sees them, and as he's walking by, he says, I speak Italian, in Italian, and they just white ghost face and walk away. And that's like, for me, that's like being at the nail salon and speaking whatever language they speak that they try to talk behind your back. I just think that's the best story.
That's great that you even know that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I actually got a spot pedicure this weekend, so I totally understand.
Oh, that's great. Every time we go on vacation, we take my son, my husband, me, and my daughter, and we all get our nails and feet done. It's like the first thing we do.
It's the best.
It's
it was
great.
The first thing on my list before I got married was don't go into the wedding hall with your nasty body shop nails. So I went and got a pedicure.
Ah,
manicure. It was perfect.
Questo ragazzino come sei simpatico.
That's how I got a good wife. It's the only way to do it. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing with your social media platform. What is the, I guess the best way of saying it, the brand identity behind the Porsche gal?
Yeah. So, and your wife will appreciate this, but as you know, I've always been passionate about vintage cars. And my son, who is mama's boy, and my daughter, they're growing up, right? And an Italian mother is very attached to her children. And my kids, we were an empty nester. They needed a break. I mean, they needed a break. We're like, we got to get mom busy. Like, she's working, but she's spending too much time on us. And they had kind of like a small intervention. And they're like, Mom, listen, you love going vintage shopping in your vintage cars, and you love going to antique stores, and we really need you to leave us alone. We need a life, so you need to get your own life. I was like, oh, okay.
It's a wake-up call.
It was a wake-up call. So my daughter grabbed my phone. My husband thought of P&W Porsche Gal. My daughter created P&W Porsche Gal.
Okay.
She used to videotape me. It was my way of being able to spend time with her. And they did it so that I would get off their back. And the funny thing is then I started to become really popular. And then they're like, Mom, we need to have a conversation. Like, you're spending too much time yes, you're spending too much time, on your Instagram. And I said, what do you, this is what I do. I mean, when you tell me to do something, I'm 100%. So it was kind of funny. And then now they're, Mom, you can't do this. You should really do this. My son got me a drone for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so funny. And now I'm just having all this fun, and people are kind of coming to me and asking me, like, what are you doing? And giving me advice or giving me their opinions. And I'm kind of at a state in my life where I'm like, I really don't give a shit what you think.
That's awesome.
Or whatever. I just want to have fun. And my whole focus is to show you and enjoy the cars and enjoy going to vintage stores. And I mean, I'm just having a good time.
Yeah.
There's no really purpose. The only thing I would say is, it's a fun thing to do when you're an empty nester with your husband. Our goal is to do a little bit more traveling, to go to some car shows and to go on some road trips. I'm reading about where the best place to go on some road trips with my husband.
That's great.
With our cars, like the 17-mile drive in California or maybe Maui. I don't really know. I mean, I'd love to learn more about just this space and to not be intimidated because it is a man's world here.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Oh, that's awesome.
Just embrace more women to come and do this. So it's fun.
I love that. And I like to I think the weird image that I have in my head when I think of women in the car community is that like typical poster photo of some girl scantily clad on the hood of a Camaro.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather see this image that you're putting out there. I think is super important. And I'm slowly trying to get my wife into cars. You said that you had a Miata, which is, you know, I've said this joke on the podcast before, but I told my wife, we're married now, any car you want. And she's like, I'll take that car. And we're driving on the road, Miata. I'm like, you know what?
That's awesome.
That's great. That's great. That's going to save me a boatload of money.
Well, yeah.
She's got to learn how to drive stick, which she doesn't yet.
Yeah.
I've tried. I have a 1988 BMW E30, which is a 5-speed manual transmission. She's tried a bit. She can do it. She got a little frustrated, which is understandable. Everybody does. But yeah, that idea that you're pushing out into the ethos, I think, is huge. And one of the other things I think that you're doing, whether or not you're trying to or not, is you're inspiring people to try to live a similar lifestyle to what you're doing. And I think that's really important. And this kind of goes into my next question, which is the social media can be so toxic, as we talked about before. What's your opinion now that you've gotten more entrenched in this sort of, you know, social media ethos? Have you seen any of that toxicity? Have you seen any of that hate? How do you manage, you know, your time with it? And how do you go about the work-life balance of social media and everything else?
Sure. Well, this year, starting in the new year, just because I'm so busy at work, I've kind of taken a small break. And I do think it's important to not completely get absorbed in it because you want to live in the present. I get up really early. I don't require a lot of sleep. So any kind of thinking that I do, it's usually early in the morning before I even start my day. And then kind of during the day, I'm working. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a vice president of sales for a startup company called San Juan Seltzer.
Oh, awesome.
And my husband works at Cafe Vita, which is the coffee that I've given you right back there.
I'll drink some of that tomorrow. I'll be ready for work.
You know, I've been in the coffee world all my life, and I've been a career woman all my life. So it's kind of replacing the empty nesting part. Mm-hmm. And I think I've done a pretty good job. I think that there's some people that just live, eat, sleep social media. And I think it's important not to just completely get absorbed into that, for Definitely. Sure. You know, my message is really to have fun. I mean, there's no real purpose. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the creativity. I love the filming. I love the photography. I love looking at beautiful cars. I love learning more. There's so much for me to learn, and I love going to car shows and having somebody come up to me and tell me all about their car. And each time they do, I learn something new. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm new to this, and I'm hoping that more women will do this and not be intimidated by it because they don't know a lot. Right. I don't know a lot. I'm slowly learning. I just knew that I loved sporty vintage cars, and I knew that I loved manual transmissions, and I never thought in a million years I would be jumping in a GT3 Club Sport, and it just blew my mind when I got in it. Yeah. So not really my style, but I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about San Juan Seltzers and Vita Coffee. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So I'd love to go into the Vita Coffee because we have two shops here.
Okay.
We have one on Lower East Side and one in Brooklyn. So I hope you guys get a chance to go check it out. Mm-hmm. And I hope you guys get to try that coffee. It's a Seattle-based coffee company. When I started in the coffee business, one of my first jobs out of college was working at Starbucks Coffee Company. Cool. This is pre-IPO, and we pioneered the concept of quality coffee in restaurants and hotels and airlines and universities, and then all these other little coffee shops and coffee companies started growing, and Cafe Vita is one of them. My husband's a partner in it, and it's just really fabulous. I hope you guys get a chance to try
Definitely.
it. And been in coffee my entire life. About 6 years ago, we launched a seltzer company called San Juan Seltzer. Okay. And it's based in the Pacific Northwest. And it's kind of exciting from ground up to watch
really
it
exciting.
Grow.
And is this, now you see a lot of hard seltzer. Is it a hard seltzer or is it is?
It's a hard seltzer. It's 0 sugar, 0 carbs, keto friendly. I'll definitely make sure on my next trip
Gluten-free, kosher, all that stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff.
That's great.
All that stuff. I mean, it's number 3. They got White Claw Truly, and then you've got San Juan Seltzer.
Wow, that's fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
What's
you.
something about the, I guess we'll just, for lack of a better way of saying it, something about the drink world, both in coffee and in seltzers or across the board, that you don't think people know, or what's it been like to see? I love coffee too. Italians. My grandmother used to put coffee in my milk when I was a kid. And I joke with my mom, but that's why I didn't grow as tall as my father and brother, because that's the old saying. And she's like, your grandmother's dead. Leave her alone. Sorry, Mom. And I'm sure you could see in your head exactly what you were saying before. My mom just helicoptering around me at all times. But yeah, what are some challenges in that world that you face?
Lots of coffee out there and lots of seltzers out there. And I think you need to find a way to separate you in terms of everything that they do, from the quality of the beans that they get to the roasting to the delivery. You know, it's fresh made, you know. So people that get Cafe Vita is probably 7 days fresh.
Oh, wow.
And that's, you know, one thing that's really important. Need to degas, and then they deliver it. They deliver it with their own truck. So
I saw something recently that really grossed me out. It was something about how people who are allergic to shellfish might get allergic reactions to ground coffee because there's a certain tolerance that the Food and Drug Administration allow for cockroaches to slip into the coffee before it gets ground.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's disgusting. I try my best to drink as much fresh coffee, and I try to support small businesses as much as possible. One of the reasons is
because you are, yeah.
We're a small business, and I like meeting people. I like talking to the person behind it. So I will definitely enjoy a nice cup of coffee. How do you take your coffee? Are you just a espresso gal? What's your way of?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit of a snob, but I love my coffee, just nothing in it, just a drip cup of coffee. And for me, I'm able to tell just the quality of it. Yeah. So I also love a short shot, and then I usually take it with oat milk.
Really?
So oat milk, just a 12-ounce oat milk latte. I drink a lot of coffee.
Do you? How many coffees do you think you drink a day?
Well, I've trained myself to stop at noon, because if I didn't, I would be up all night. And, you know, I'm very sensitive to coffee. So, you know, anything goes before noon.
Really? Wow. Good for you.
Yeah. Your demographic, you guys are really good. I mean, I have to say, even though my son doesn't like manual transmission, he's a software engineer, graduated from the University of Washington, and is just trying to get me on those, you know, those Teslas and this and that, which I know nothing about, and, you know, don't know enough about to say what I know or what I don't know.
How do you feel about electric cars, being someone who drives raw, you know, analog cars?
You know, we know a lot about cars from the 70s and the 80s and some 60s. And I have to say, I know nothing about electric cars. I did ask a couple of my friends who have Teslas, and I mean, they say really good things about them. You know, I'm saving money on oil, I'm saving money on gas, and I've got my charger right at work. So the ones that have it love it. I just can't tell you. It seems like it's the wild, wild west out there. Not enough information yet. I mean, if everybody got a Tesla today, would we be supported? So I can't speak on that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I recently purchased a Tesla that I'm trying to make as least Tesla as possible. So
How do you do that?
It's going to be crazy. And actually, this might be the first time we've talked about this.
Make it a different color that's not Tesla.
So we're putting big knobby tires on it, 2-inch lift kit, roof rack, bull bar, lights, a full rally livery.
You're outlawing it.
I'm trying to do something similar.
Interesting.
But it's been I don't know. We're just getting so much hate with the Tesla stuff. And again, I'm going to try to...
You're getting a lot of comments. I noticed that. I noticed that. Yes. Your social media went nuts when you guys were like, do you do this or do you do that?
It's crazy. And honestly, I've grown a thicker skin. But the one person who hates it more than anybody is my wife, because like there'll be 10 comments about how I'm gay, and she's like, I'm his wife, I'm right here. That's not true. Like, like it's fine. It's just idiots on the internet. Don't even stress it. Just let it go. It's fine.
It's really funny. My whole social media is only about positivity, and if anybody even thinks they're going to say something negative, I just delete them.
That's
I
great.
just don't want. That's not what it's about. It's all. I mean, it's great to get the feedback for you, because you learn a lot about what people are thinking. I mean, my husband's like, we're never going to get an electric car. That's just the way it goes. And I'm like, I am completely aligned with you on that. But it's great to see the comments, because I didn't realize that there was such a separation.
It's crazy.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think of a good like analogy for it, but there's a few things that come to mind when I think about the electric cars. I also am a big fan of driving cars, especially the ones that are a bit more visceral. And I always like to say a Tesla is kind of like a scalpel, and any other car combustion engine's like a chainsaw. They both cut, but one does it in a very different way than the other. And so when you get behind the wheel of a car like that, there's a thrill, but it seems soulless. You know what I mean? There's nothing.
Well, there's no like. It's just not feeding that sense of that sound. I mean, when you're going to a car race and you're in an electric car, I mean, I remember at Ren Sport, I was like, oh, the electric cars came by?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear them.
I didn't know.
It was like
yeah.
nothing.
And if they do make noise, it's like the Jetsons. You're like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." Like what, where am I right now? It's crazy. One of the questions I like to ask all enthusiasts, and I'm really interested to hear your take on this, is if you had an unlimited budget, magic wand, and you had only 3 spaces in your garage, a daily driver, your fun weekend car, and your holy grail car that you might not even drive, you would just take pictures of it and look at, what would be your 3 cars?
I think in my collection, we have a great collection. I have a 930 Guards Red, which is a 1986. It's kind of cool. That's fun. I would love something tribute or something James Dean, something 356 Speedster, stock, or outlawed. I mean, I don't have one. I would love to have one in as my
Like something you would look at and just drink coffee around.
Well, if it's a real one, it would be exactly.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't want to. You don't want to put miles on.
I'd love to drive. I love the way they look. I've never driven one before, so
it's like a fun old Volkswagen is how it drives, but I love it.
Yeah,
we have one.
Not very fast.
No, my brother took it out. This is why I don't take out my dad's cars. We bought one for
Your dad has a 356, right?
He does, a convertible.
How many?
He only has one. It's a convertible. We have 3 at the shop now. I think it's a Brewster Green, a Guards Red. My dad's is Guards Red. His is convertible. And my brother took it out for the weekend. The weekend we got it. And, he's the older brother. And he, I guess, shifted a little too hard. And the car stopped driving, and now it needs a new clutch, and we had to take the engine out. And so this went from a car that he was going to leave the way it was and drive, and now the engine's out. We've completely sandblasted the entire underneath and engine compartment, and now it's going to get I will put money on this, and Elvis, I want you to clip this. I guarantee you that car gets a full restoration at this point. So maybe my brother did the right thing, maybe not. But
I think so. What's the interior?
It's black.
Nice.
It's very simple, which we like, but we're trying to push Dad a little bit more into, if anybody should have a ridiculously spec'd fun car, it should be the body shop guys.
Yeah,
Like everybody else can have the Guards Red car, which now that I hear that you have one, no hate towards your Guards Red car. It's probably
that was by accident too.
Okay.
That was by accident too. So
I get it. It's we should have a crazy paint to sample Mexico blue with a houndstooth interior, but
something really loud.
I think so, and
something
that's why
really
my Tesla is going to be very, very loud.
And
I'm very excited about it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So you had a few stories that you, Elvis, and you spoke about, and I wanted to hear about. One of them had to do with the purchase of a car. Yeah.
Well, it really was the 996 MK1 Club Sport, the GT3 Club Sport. I mean, that is probably our most interesting car. Okay. But a little over a year ago, we did also buy a 1986 Guards Red 930.
Okay.
And it's funny. I'm not crazy about Guards Red, but it's so time period correct.
Right.
I mean, when you think of a little kid with a poster on his wall, you think of a Guards Red,
Yeah, 930 or
Porsche,
Air-cooled, yep.
right?
That's true.
And that's another car that, I've been driving for so many years, the 911 SC, which, by the way, my everyday car would probably be the 911 SC. I mean, I love them. They're great. They're simple. They're really easy to ride. And they're not particularly fast. It's 180 horsepower, but it seems a lot faster, and it's just a really great car. Grand Prix white. It's not super loud. We put the scripts on it and added the Momo steering wheel, added a couple of other cosmetic things, but I just really like that as an everyday car. The 930 is pretty flashy. It's very flashy, and I would have to say on social media, every time I drive that 930, I probably get the most comments on that. I get the most reactions with that Guards Red.
Really? More than anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than the GT3.
That's surprising. Well, it's probably because they hate it so much. People, I don't know what it is. That car is seen more. We talk about this a lot. That car saved Porsche. That car, they made more 996s than they had made any 911 before.
I saw that Instagram post and I learned something new about that, and that's why they actually made those cars.
That's why they made it.
And you sold the most they sold the most cars.
Yes. And so that's why
and then you
there's
talked
so
about
many
the
of them.
headlights.
Yes, people
And
hate
I think
the headlights.
that's why the headlights, yeah.
I like them, and people think that I'm just saying that to whatever for
I've
whatever
heard that
reason.
before, and I saw a YouTube video. They were talking about
Running
how
egg or
just the
whatever.
headlights are not all that. I got to tell you, when you get in there, though, it's got the bar and the red seatbelt. And
It's sick. It's a sexy car.
It's sick.
Yeah, I like
that's
that
a good.
lot.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the power steering, the tightness, the stiffness. It's incredible.
Have you ever been in a car accident before? You got a story?
Oh, I was in one that made me stop driving manual transmission cars for a little while. But when I was working at Starbucks, I was in my Mazda Miata. You know what? probably may not even tell you, because if your wife's going to hear this, she may not want a Mazda Miata anymore.
Okay.
But it spooked me so much that I kind of stopped for a couple years. I think I bought like an Excursion afterwards.
Okay.
I was in downtown Seattle, and I think I was going to an appointment. I had my coffee by my side, and when you're in a four-way stop sign and those big trucks. Yeah, it was a truck accident. Those big trucks, when they turn, they kind of take up not just their lane, but they take up like 3 lanes. Somehow, some way, the big truck, and I don't even know how it happened, and thank God for horns. Make sure your horn works. The truck was turning, and somehow the truck didn't see me, and it very slowly latched onto me.
Oh, wow.
And dragged me for a bit, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs. I mean, it was scary.
It's terrifying.
Nothing bad happened. He heard me and he stopped. That was it. That's all I can remember. You know how you just kind of black out, or maybe you just don't want to remember. But I just stopped driving those small cars for a long time.
That's terrifying.
Until I met my husband, and then he introduced me back into Porsches.
That's great.
And then the nostalgia came all back. It was enough of a gap. So
That makes sense. That's terrifying. My
Yeah.
dad was in an accident like that once, where a truck hit him, and I guess because he was in a Porsche, the truck in front of him, truck behind him, and started slowly squishing him. And luckily they stopped like right before. I guess he said that he felt like he was going to get smushed into the steering wheel, but
How did that? Was it the horn?
the horn, yeah, I think the horn is what.
Yeah.
Otherwise, especially in a truck, those things are loud. You're up high. You're definitely not going to hear somebody screaming terribly. But
You guys must see a lot. I mean, some of your Instagram posts actually freak me out. You're
It's a little scary.
Imagine being in this car and jumping off the cliff, and you're just. I mean, how did you guys do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
We one of the funnier things that we got to do recently, we raised a good amount of money for a charity in Westchester called Friends of Karen, and we started getting a little bit ridiculous with the promotion. We did a car show, and it started off super simple, just my brother like giving me a whack in the head, and then he took soap and started spraying me all over, and then the last thing that my dad was like, "You are not doing," and we ended up doing it, and I had bruises for like a week or two. He hit me with a car, and it was ridiculous, and not only did he hate it, but again, a good metric for what's going to be good and what's not going to be good is my wife, who has always been my
my God.
light and darkness, because it's like, I'm like, hey, should I get hit by a car? She's like, do you even have to ask? And I'm like, no. She's like, are you going to do it anyway? Yes, I'm going to do it anyway.
How did you do this? What did you, what?
Yeah, there's really no answers.
You
It's brutal. Yeah. We raised, at the time it was like 50,000. And I think that's enough. I think we did it. Yeah. And everyone was like, no, it's not enough. And I was like, no, I think 50 is enough. And then boom, he hits me with a car, and brother's like, 50,000 is not enough. You need more money. So it worked.
God. Do you have a video of this craziness?
I think we do, right? Alice can send that to you. We'll
oh,
get that
gosh.
done. So a few other questions I always like to ask guests. And this is another one I really want to get your take on. Do you have any pet peeves? It can be related to the car world, the business world, anything that just really grinds your gears. So one that we did recently was somebody said, I hate when people talk over me. I think that's the worst thing that a person can do in business, relationships, car world, everything. Just give a person the opportunity to talk all the way to the end, and then you'll have your chance. So that was a good one. Another one we did was when someone's giving you lights and right behind you, and they make all that effort to get around you, and then they just end up going the same speed that you're going.
I like to learn.
Okay.
And I like to ask questions. And I don't like to feel stupid. And so I hope that it's okay to be able to go to a car show or to be able to go to an event and where everybody else will know something because they live, eat, sleep cars. I have a job, I have children, I have a husband, but I always like to embrace it, and I always like to learn, and I don't want to feel like I'm not allowed to ask. And you know what I love about your posts is I love how you just go, what the hell is that? I mean, that's great, because sometimes people will look at you funny, like, I can't believe you don't know what that is.
It's ridiculous.
It's a 911 GT3 RS. And I'm like, okay, that's great.
Yeah, thanks for the information.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
I want to be able to have everybody just be okay to ask questions.
That's a great one.
And stupid questions, because no question is stupid.
Let people be beginners, right?
Yeah.
Like let somebody, give them the opportunity and the grace to not know something. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, it's okay not to know.
I think it's one thing that I realized after college was I stopped doing things that involved not knowing things. And that really stunted my ability to grow as a person.
Absolutely.
So I tried to really dive into, in the past few years, picking up a new hobby in something that I knew nothing about or something that I sucked at. And if I lived in a world where, in that world that you're painting, where you can't ask a question, I would have never gotten better. And that's something people say to me all the time. This might be a stupid question. And I before they speak, I'm like, not a stupid question. I'm supposed to be the expert here. Any question. And I think that's a really good one. And it kind of leads me into the next question, which is...
I have to applaud you first.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really mean that, because one of the reasons why I'm here, one of my goals for 2024 is to do things that are uncomfortable.
It's huge.
Yeah. So I love that you said that, and thank you.
Yeah. No, we had a guest on recently who said a great way to do that is to compete in something. So, whether it's Scrabble night with your friends or, picking up jujitsu, whatever it is, just try to compete at something. And I think that's a really good way of sucking at stuff is super important. I think having an ego is detrimental to relationships. And I am the first person to tell you, like, I'm the biggest goofball idiot. Like, and I
love it.
Love that. Yeah.
I just love that about you.
Thank you. It's fun to be that way. So recommendations. I've gone as far as I had watched a movie recently called Layer Cake that had a really cool classic Defender, Land Rover Defender. I called it a Range Rover Defender in our last video, and everyone was like,
I love those cars.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Hard to get.
I want one.
Another thing I said recently was, if you have somebody riding you, I am a huge, I'm anti brake check. Do not brake check. It's so dangerous. I've seen countless dash cam videos of people getting very hurt. So what I like to say is, if at the same time somebody is riding your ass, if you notice that your windshield's a little dirty and you want to spray some windshield wiper fluid and it just so happens to spray back and hit the person behind you, then it's a win-win. So is there anything that you want to recommend to people? It's a good one. And I honestly, one of the things I've thought about doing is putting a massive tank in like a massive windshield washer fluid tank, because I want to be able to press that thing for like 5 minutes.
Well, all I know is that I love escaping to the mountains
Okay.
on the weekends. And I highly recommend people who work really hard, like my husband and I do, to take that time and be in places where there's nothing. And it's just awesome. I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of that it really just rejuvenates me.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun driving on the country roads back there.
best.
There's nobody. You can go super fast. There's no speed limit. Well, you got to be careful.
Right.
But it's my big escape. And now we're just addicted to just escaping every weekend. I mean, that's the only thing that I can think of.
That's a great one for New Yorkers. Get out. Especially one of the guests we had on was the owner of Classic Car Club Manhattan. And what I love about what they do is, as a member, you can drive their fleet of cars, and they have some incredible cars. And it is not, for them, it is not about getting in your Lamborghini and taking your hot date out. You can do that, but they promote going outside of city limits and just tearing up the roads. And that, to me, is, I could not agree more with your recommendation. It's huge. I think creativity-wise, when you can get outside of your comfort zone in that way as well, it's huge.
Yeah.
So that's a really good
I
one.
highly recommend that.
And then one question that I should prompt people with before, because this is a really tough one. If you had a time machine and you could go back in time and talk to 16-year-old Stefania, what would you tell her?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I know. Everybody always says that. That's why I need to prompt
16-year-old
people.
Stefania.
Or what would you tell your recently 16-year-old son?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to what I love about your statement that you said. And I mean, honestly, do things that make you uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable and you have butterflies in your stomach, do it. Don't be afraid. What's the worst thing that could happen? I think when I was younger, I was just so worried about just looking silly, and I've changed like 360 degrees where you get to a point at my age, I have a son, your age practically, where you just don't give a shit. I just don't care. Mikey, you have so much enthusiasm, and you're such a great speaker.
Oh, thank you.
And you just have so much great energy. I love your posts.
I appreciate that.
I
Thank
really
you.
do. And that's why I'm here, mainly to get out of my comfort zone. But I couldn't help it. Sei italiano.
Yeah. Listen, nobody will be able to tell this was your first podcast. This was incredible. And I want to give you the opportunity now to tell people, because they're going to want to know after this, where can they find you? What's your social media handle, and what stuff would you like to promote?
P&W Porsche Gal. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I do everything vintage. I go to vintage stores. I go to vintage coffee shops. I am a huge fan of a company in Switzerland called Swissvax.
Okay.
They reached out to me, and I'll make sure that they give you some samples as well.
Thank you.
It's a really great product. And at first we had no idea what it was, and we got some delivered from Switzerland, and my husband will not stop talking about it. And it's basically just cosmetics for cleaning your cars.
Oh, cool.
It is just the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to try that. That's
Yeah.
great. And then Cafe Vita, can people buy that online? the
You
coffee?
can buy that online, or there's 2 coffee shops here. There's one in Brooklyn and one in Lower East Side. It's a great coffee company.
That's great. And then San Juan Seltzers.
San Juan Seltzer, that's local. That's Pacific
Okay.
Northwest.
So not available everywhere.
No,
Okay.
not available
Awesome.
everywhere. I'll ship some to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This was amazing.
Yeah,
I really
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. Tune in next time.